With the rise of Myspace came the rise of the scene kids fashion. The art of mixing gore and goofy designs became a thing very early on, with icons like Ollie Sykes and Mike Ranica starting their very own clothing line, and the band merch itself following the same direction. Metalcore, deathcore, crabcore, easycore, they were all part of it, and it's probably why it was so popular in the first place. Today, in this video, let's go back in time together and take a look at the most iconic clothing brands. So my friend, as usual, take a cup of coffee, a cigarette, double chocolate muffins, whatever you feel like as we dive into the Myspace era fashion. Real quick, before starting the video, I just want to say thank you to all my Patreon. It really means the world to support me in that way. I appreciate you all. Also, in case you didn't know, we have a Discord server, it's free, and we have such a cool community. Feel free to join, the link is in the description. And we have our live deathcore podcast on Twitch every Wednesday. With all that being said, let's start the video. Shipshape clothing. Easily one of my personal favorite because I was a big fan of the Devil Wears Prada during that time. Their lead vocalist, Mike Ranica, was the founder of the brand, but unfortunately I couldn't find exactly in what year it was created. That being said, their first Myspace entry was in 2007, so my guess would be around 2006. Speaking of which, let's take a look at their first Myspace layout. Super sick, very flashy, and it was way more in line with pop punk than metal, which is exactly how they described the concept of the brand. Mike said they were tired of all the black and dark aesthetic and wanted to create a more happy, positive message with their clothing line. They were also about to release their most iconic design, very simple but quite iconic. This is the one we would see the most, I'd say. As I was doing my research, I was so stoked to find some full-size print design, you know, like some of the first prints they ever made. Also, here are some of the other models they created during that time. It really brings you back, doesn't it? And just to give you a little context, the Devil Wears Prada was starting to get more and more popular because of an amazing performance they did during the 2006 Cornerstone Festival.
I don't want to say this, but I gotta. We are the Devil Wears Prada.
It was actually my introduction to the band, and it was also the rise of Christian metalcore and all those bands going crazy on stage. I sincerely miss it every day. There was an obvious hype around the Devil Wears Prada, especially after dropping Dear Love at Beautiful Discord. I wouldn't say it was their prime yet, but it was definitely the beginning of their rise in the scene. So as you probably guessed, having Mike Ranica as the face of the band gave the absolute best visibility to Shipshape. On top of that, the brand started sponsoring amazing bands in the scene, including their friends and A Day to Remember and With Blood Comes Cleansing. Two great bands that I made videos about, by the way. I was also very pleasantly surprised to see that they were sponsoring Our Last Night, a very young upcoming band at the time. Of course, as we all know, they went on and became very popular doing metal covers of pop songs. I really think they're amazing, by the way. So much talent within that band, it's insane. Maybe I should do a video about them. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, as much as Shipshape Clothing was a very cool brand with a great start, it really took off when the Devil Wears Prada entered what I like to call their prime era. For some reason, people don't talk about how their album Plagues changed everything. The Devil Wears Prada became the biggest band on Rise Records, and of course, Mike Raneka wearing ship-shaped shirts, whatever, really made it more popular. Another thing that contributed to the neon pop fashion era is the fact that the Devil Wears Prada didn't take themselves too seriously. They had the goofiest song titles, and I think it really made them stand out. Unfortunately, believe it or not, exactly during its peak, ship-shaped clothing had to be closed down due to some legal reasons. I was of course very disappointed because I loved the brand and Mike was a big inspiration to me and all of that, but I guess that's how it had to be. Rockett was another very cool brand that got huge during the Myspace era. Let's take a look at their 2004 online store. As you can see, they had more of an emo scene aesthetic, and I was lucky enough to find what I think was their first collection. I mean, the photo shoot alone already brings you back in time, but the designs are honestly so reminiscent of that era. I was also very impressed by the amount of legendary bands they were sponsoring already. I mean, Atreyu, Bleeding Through, The Used, From First to Last. They were also apparently selling band merch on their website, which I thought was a great way to support the artist directly. In 2005-2006, they changed their website layout. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the collection. Then in 2007-2008, they started getting more traction on MySpace, and that's when they started sponsoring metalcore and deathcore bands. It was pretty cool to see them sponsoring different kinds of band, going from Newfound Glory to All Shall Perish. Of course, one of those bands was the Devil Wears Prada, one of their most iconic photo shoot if you ask me. I always wondered why Mike Raneka wasn't a part of it, but now that I'm making this video, I kind of realized it was probably because he still had ship-shaped clothing and didn't want to represent another brand. I don't know. Could be other things, I'm just speculating, but it would make sense, I guess. Anyway, the MySpace era was the prime of Rockett clothing, I believe. They were sponsoring so many great tours, and they matched perfectly the neon pop trend aesthetic. So I think it's fair to say this was their best years. I know they kept going for a while after that. I'm pretty sure they're not active anymore since their last post was in 2018 or something, but who knows, maybe they're gonna come back someday. Arkaik Clothing, a very cool brand that kind of started a bit later if we compare to the other brands featured in the video. Here's their 2009 MySpace profile. Very cool looking, and I was very happy to see that they were sponsoring Bless the Fall. Then in 2010, they were sponsoring Attack. And even if it wasn't the Someday Came Suddenly era, I think it was very awesome. By the way, I sincerely believe that their 2010 self-title is extremely underrated. They were pretty much sponsoring all the biggest bands. I mean, Bring Me the Horizon, Of Mice and Men, Miss May I See Stars, and believe it or not, freaking Suicide Silence. In case you didn't know, having Mitch Locker representing your brand was the absolute best visibility you could ever get. The guy was the face of deathcore, he was smart and kind and positive and a freaking beast on stage. I mean, total package, so great job, Arkaik. On top of that, they also had Austin Carlisle, and despite how controversial he is today, during that era, He was one of the biggest icons, and it was a big thing for the brand. From what I could find, they kept their website pretty simple and minimalistic over the years, which totally worked for them, and they started sponsoring amazing tours, so they quickly became one of the most popular brands, I would say. I also think it's cool that they had both the neon pop trend aesthetic, but at the same time they also had more neutral colors as well. Unfortunately, it kind of died at the same time that MySpace started fading away. I would say around 2012. I keep talking about it in my videos, but that's really what happened. And they officially called it quit in 2013. Johnny Cupcake is easily one of the most iconic brands of that era. I'm pretty sure we can all agree on that. I was so impressed to see how huge it was already in 2004. The website looks great. Steve-O of Jackass was repping their merch. I mean, just for context, Jackass and Bam Margera in the early 2000s were the biggest thing on the planet. I also really love how they described the brand, saying it was both mysterious and positive, just a wholesome mission statement in general. Johnny Cupcakes got featured twice on AP Magazine and a bunch of other cool stuff. They also had a lot of the same bands that Rockett had, but on top of that, they were also sponsoring bands like Every Time I Die and AFI. In 2005, they had a brand new website, a new collection. I really think it's cool that they had the neon pop aesthetic so early on. They also had launched their first store, which was a big thing for an upcoming clothing brand. They also started doing something called Cupperware parties, which was a regular party, but they would have a merch table selling their stuff. They would bake cupcakes and stuff like that. If any of you ever attended one of these, please let me know in the comments. I'm just extremely curious to know how it was. As you probably guessed by the name, it was founded by someone named Johnny, a guy with the goal of pushing the cupcake jokes very far, and he didn't take himself too seriously, you know, it was all in good fun, and I really appreciated the good, positive vibe, wholesome thinking behind the brand. In 2006, they released a lot of cool stuff, including a few collections and a plush I really wish I had, not gonna lie. They were kind of heading in the same direction as the bands they were sponsoring, the neon pop monster, gore and goofy fashion, if you will. A lot of very popular bands were representing Johnny Cupcakes at this point, including major acts like Gym Class Heroes. The Myspace era was a very important period of time for Johnny Cupcakes, but I'm not sure I could really say it was the prime because the brand honestly just kept growing more and more. As a matter of fact, they are still active today, sponsoring tons of things, and unfortunately, very recently they had to close one of their stores, but nonetheless, the fact that they're still here, standing strong after all of that, says a lot about, you know, the brand in general and how motivated Johnny still is. It's awesome if you ask me. Drop Dead. I mean, I guess you could say I kept the best for last. As we all know, Drop Dead was and still is Ollie Sykes' clothing brand. If you ask me, it's impossible to mention the Myspace era without thinking about Drop Dead and Ollie Sykes. But before getting into the best years of the brand, let's go back to the beginning, when a very young Ollie launched his very first website. Once again, very reminiscent of that era with the light yellow color, and I was very curious to know what was the song playing in the background, which was Don't Call by a band named The Secret Handshake. A very weird but cool artist in my opinion. But before getting into the designs and the first collection, I wanted to give you a little context. You see, right during those days, Bring Me the Horizon just had released their infamous album called Count Your Blessings. And even before that, they already had a big hype with their first EP. All that to say that the very young Ollie Sykes you're about to see was already extremely popular in the scene. As you can tell, it's not the iconic drop dead look we all remember, the one that they created later on, but I guess you could still see the vision behind the brand, the colors, the style, the aesthetic. There was something special happening. Then Bring Me the Horizon released their infamous Pray for Plagues video, and Drop Dead kind of exploded, honestly. It became twice as popular, and even then, it was nothing compared to when they released Suicide Season. I don't think you realize how huge Bring Me the Horizon was with that record. I mean, right after releasing Count Your Blessings, that band was considered one of the best deathcore bands out there. But then, they went on and created one of the most iconic metalcore records, innovating and again inspiring an entire scene. So what happened was, both deathcore fans and metalcore fans around the world, everybody was stoked on them and on that release. So they really played a major role into creating one big scene with the Vans Warped Tour and all of that, as opposed to be, you know, all liking different styles of music. It was one big scene and it was the best. Everybody knew about Drop Dead. I mean, at the very least, I'm sure you all remember those two iconic models, right? It was prime Drop Dead. Every single model was sick, and they released it at the perfect time, perfect moment, right up there with the neon pop fashion trend. Just like every band wanted to be Bring Me the Horizon, every single brand wanted to be like Drop Dead. And quite honestly, every single scene kid wanted to look like Ollie Sykes. They were on top of the world, living the dream, enjoying their success, rightfully so, and they were also sponsoring tons of cool bands in the scene like These Nuts, Yumi at 6, and one of my favorite pop punk bands, Farewell. Looking back, without Bring Me the Horizon and Drop Dead, I really don't think the Myspace era would have been the same. It was the ultimate crossover between hardcore, emo, scene, deathcore, metalcore, pop punk, and so much more. Obviously, Bring Me the Horizon and Ollie Sykes are still killing it, releasing hit after hit, and Drop Dead is still around, way darker and different, but still here, standing strong, and that would be it. Let me know if you want more videos like this. Feel free to share your memories or other brands you liked during that era. I love reading your comments. Please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Helps me a lot. The absolute best way to support me is by joining my Patreon on any level. It's always appreciated. Once again, feel free to join our Discord, and don't forget about our live Deathcore podcast on Twitch every Wednesday. With all that being said, I'm finally gonna stop talking. I'll see you in the next one.